Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the 6-5 podcast, episode 223. And yes, if you're looking at your watch and you're wondering why it's Thursday and it's not Friday, it's because I'm going on workation, but I'm going to try to make a vacation out of it. I am heading out of the country to an undisclosed bunker in a place that no one that doesn't have social media will be aware of. But if you do have social media, be warned, Bill Ackman doesn't have anything on me and my intent to be bored and tweeting a lot. Do we call it tweeting, Pat? Anyways, how's everybody doing?
Continue to call it tweeting, buddy. I'm doing well. I had some technical issues getting in here. Been on the road all week, and come in and my PC was not working very well. So
yeah, you want to talk
about background?
You want to talk about that PC a little bit more? What do you got there, Pat?
No, this is the Surface with Qualcomm inside, and I left it in high performance mode, but we'll figure this out. I did do what I shouldn't have done. There was a giant update that came in, and it was pulsating. You know, that little orange thing in the lower right hand corner. Yeah. I pressed it. I did a full firmware update, baby. And this is what we get. You know, it's kind of like, you're a kid and it's like, don't touch the stove. Don't touch the stove.
But I don't believe you that it's hot, dude. I don't believe you.
I touched the stove, dude. And I got burned.
It is hot. It is hot out there. But, part of our job as analysts is to actually do that, right? Yeah. When we break something, that's not normal and how everyone else is going to break something. We're breaking it because we're trying. You talk to the president of our combined our second child together, Signal 65, the performance lab. I mean, Ryan and his team sit around all day and they just try to break stuff. That's a big part of what we do here. But hey, you know what? I'm just happy to be home because unlike you who flew to New York and did your work and then flew home and got home, I got trapped in New York and it wasn't fun. So I had the whole awesome experience of doing the Blade, got an extra TV session in, got across town, 30th and on the west side of town, bladed to JFK, got to the lounge, 2 hours to spare. I would actually even be on time in your opinion, Pat.
Dan, Blade, can you tell everybody what Blade is?
Yeah, Blade's like Uber for a helicopter out of New York. And I want to be really clear. It feels really baller, but it's really like $75 more than an Uber. It's not that bad. And it's 5 minutes. So instead of a 90 to 120 minute cab ride across town, it's a 5-minute Blade. They put you in a car, drive you right to the door of your terminal, and off you go. It's awesome service. It's really, really cool. But American Airline, you blow. I hate you. I literally was in that. I was in the waiting room, and at first thing, it's an 8:00 flight. I'm thinking I'm gonna get home at midnight. Not bad. Full day of work tomorrow. Get that update, 9:30 delay. 5 minutes later, another update, canceled. Walk to the front desk. I'm like, why is it canceled? And they're like, yeah, we don't really ever know anymore. This is what the American people told me in the Admirals Club. Yeah, we don't really ever know. It says weather. I'm like, oh, so that means no voucher, no hotel, no transportation, right? But ironically, right across town from Newark, there was a United flight at the same time that left and got to Austin. So apparently the weather was only bad at JFK because apparently Manhattan has multiple climates going on within that 10-mile radius. All right, lots of talking, too much information here. Little bit of a busy week right after the 4th of July, Pat. We're back from it all. There was no waiting. On a Sunday, I was off. Monday, you were off. We were doing 6-5s. We did a big 6-5 video with the CEO of Vast Data, you and I on Monday. That's more coming on that soon. We both hit AWS Summit. We were at you were at Samsung Galaxy Unpacked. We did another 6-5 video there that'll be hitting. You did it without me. I mean, they're always better that way.
I missed you though. I really did, and Brad did ask about you. So, anyways. Hey, buddy, I think you're muted.
It's technology, whatever. It's about to hit earnings season again. There's a lot of speculation going on. Is Tesla going to do its robotaxi event? We're not going to talk about that, but that came out. Apple and Microsoft. There's some news about OpenAI and their relationship with the board. AMD acquired Silo. Sequoia, A16Z, and Goldman are raining on AI's parade. I can't wait to talk about that one. Then Oracle and Palantir made an interesting announcement. And then, Pat, we're going to talk about legalizing voting with or without IDs. No, I'm just kidding. You got to go to our Twitter accounts to get that kind of stuff. All right, everybody. Do remember, though, this is for information and entertainment purposes only. And while we will be talking about publicly traded companies, let's not take this as any investment advice. I'm going to kick off the first topic, Pat. This is going to be probably the beefiest one we'll have, although there is a lot to cover. And that's going to be AWS Summit, Pat. So, look, a lot of content happened, and it kind of had a little bit of there was a little bit of a pre-launch because the Graviton 4 CPU was announced. It came out the day before. I came down with a little illness. I was in my room watching Matt Garman on CNBC talking about it. Great to start to see him get out there, by the way. Look forward to having him on the show. And look, AWS did the kind of most AWS thing that AWS does. They launched a new chip. It's got some great improvements on generation to generation. And they really only focused on that. They didn't talk a whole lot about how Graviton compares to other, merchant silicon that they sell. They talked a lot about, and it really efficiency was the big focal point of this announcement. They talked about, I believe it was 60%, Pat, more efficient, than its previous generation. And they also, talked a lot about, the ability for this next generation to reduce carbon footprint. Now, they did make kind of a reference to non-Graviton instances. That was about as competitive as I've ever seen. But like I said, the topic was all in on efficiency. They did the exact same thing, by the way, as they ran through second generation Inferentia and Trainium chips, talking about 2 times more efficient out of their new Trainium chip and 50% more energy efficient on deep learning. Now, again,
Hey, Dan, they announced this chip a long time ago. This announcement was about GA.
Yeah.
No, I'm just doing the check.
You're talking on Inferentia Trainium or Graviton?
Graviton 4.
They announced. Yeah, I'm sorry. I should have said that clearly.
It's I'm just did the for the audience.
This was a tour. They were on announcing it's out. So I should have used that word more clearly. They announced that it's out and it's available now. My point, though, is really that they were doing a victory lap on efficiency. They seem to double down, lean in hard into the power envelope of these AWS homemade. I appreciate you stopping that. It probably came across like I was saying they were announcing these chips for the first time. GA, everybody. GA, Pat. Thank you. All right, let me talk a little bit more about the bigger AI Summit or AWS Summit focuses. And that was the Matt Wood keynote. Matt Wood, a VP of AI services, he came out and I did a long thread, lots of different things that he was talking about. I'm going to kind of try to focus on a couple
of things.
By the
way, Matt Wood did the opening, did a 6.5 Summit keynote on end-to-end enterprise AI.
He did, and you almost worried me there that I'd given the wrong name, that I'd also botched that. So thank you.
I'm not botching. I'm just clarifying to the audience who doesn't follow it. I know you knew it was GA. It was
fact checking department. Well, now, but you know how I am though, Pat. Like I acquire a company and I announce it, and then when I actually close it, I announce it again. I mean, is this any different?
No, that's exactly what AWS does. It's smart.
Yeah, it's smart, right? So. And they were smart. They did a whole nother media round and got a whole nother tour to talk about their launches. So anyways, point though was a couple of interesting things with Matt that he came out. One is he really started off big on wanting to establish the footprint that AWS is in the AI business. Let's talk about where that happened. They ran the stat 96% of AI ML unicorns run on AWS. Where have we seen that stat before, Pat? Maybe it wasn't 96, but it was some version of 90 something that has come from
97% or something.
Yeah, every other provider. So it's a really interesting thing. But what I've come to the definitive conclusion is that multi-cloud is a big part of every AI strategy. They also mentioned 90% of the AI. One thing I did really like, though, is that they talked about kind of the development and build out of their services, Pat. They talked about having 326 new services that were launched. 2 times as many as they're saying as their nearest competition. Now,
yeah,
AWS got a little goofy with this. Not goofy. They got more like, they've always been so PC with this. They actually did a slide, Pat, where it showed the AWS list of services. And then right below it is a company one. And it was a color red, green, blue, yellow. And they were talking about how it was more than 2 times as many in the last 18 months. I mean, is this a little different feel from Matt under Matt's leadership?
They're getting aggressive for sure, right? And there's a perception that they're behind. And
and I like that you said that. I'm going to go quick so you can get to your stuff because there's a lot here. I'll be really a bit succinct with the rest of the stuff. I like that they pointed out training foundational models on AWS. There's only so many places this is happening, but some of the big ones: Anthropic, Mistral, Hugging Face, AWS. They also did some very exclusive fine tuning with Cloud 3. Cloud 3 is getting a lot of very important attention for its accuracy, its fidelity, its capabilities. So there's a deep partnership with Cloud, and obviously Amazon being a big investor in Anthropic. Last thing, they did a how many LLMs data point. I really like this. For everyone out there, enterprises are not going to standardize on a single LLM. Let's be very clear. Most are using 2, 3, 4, or more. They're going to use multiple clouds. They're going to use multiple LLMs. And Pat, don't be surprised if they use multiple silicon architectures to get this done.
That's it? You done?
I had a lot more, but we're like 30 minutes in because you were fixing your computer for the first 22 minutes of the show.
I know. I'm sorry, everybody. There's a lot more goodness I know Dan had on that. And yeah, by the way, I participated in a I don't know, it was a 10-minute video that Yahoo Finance did on Graviton 4. And gosh, my tweets were in there. I sent in photos. I did some video for them as well. So it was fun. I got in on the action as well. So let me boil this down into 2 things. What AWS brought out here was either better results for enterprises or increased efficiencies by developers, right? On the better results, right, you had more data sources, RAG connectors to Salesforce, Confluence, and SharePoint, not just the data that's sitting in S3 buckets. They added guardrails for hallucinations, right? And that's about, again, getting better results. For agents, which is a new way to do an application, which is essentially an agent talking to an agent, and sometimes even creating code on the fly. And what they did is they added memory to the agent. In a very similar way, if you use OpenAI or Perplexity, it has a certain memory, and it just gives you better results. And on the increased efficiency, they added Q Developer to SageMaker. So SageMaker is the end-to-end data and AI platform, all the way to data ingest, to training, to deploying the models. And then, of course, Bedrock sits on top of it and connects it to create enterprise applications. So you can actually go in and do what you would expect, which is create code inside of SageMaker. You can have it write code to create a script to do data cleanup, as an example. So exactly what you would expect. Q, right? The competition has Copilot. Google has agents, right? What you'd expect it to do. Also, basic how-to manuals. How do I do this? And it goes in and it tells you exactly how to do something. And the second thing they added is adding Q Developer to your own code base, and with the ability to customize that, as opposed to the code that you wrote that is essentially housed and new on AWS. And the third one was what's called App Studio, that went into preview, and that's building applications with natural language. And we've seen examples of this out there, out from many different vendors to be able to do that. And AWS is bringing it to their capability. And one thing I do want to point out is that AWS, while the company has a consumer play with .com and the media and all of the different devices, this stuff has to be bulletproof and cannot be put out there. The expectation is that whatever they put out there is absolutely bulletproof. And overall, I did sense an increased aggression. I do believe that they are feeling some of the heat. There's a couple things going on here, right? Microsoft and Azure, two things. First of all, there was a lot of people talking about OpenAI and the capabilities that were put out there and riding on top of Microsoft. Microsoft came out big time on the consumer side with Bing, and also Bing with Copilot, and then consumer Copilot that is on every modern PC out there that's updated. Microsoft also, right, did the cheat code, and I don't mean that in a bad way, is they partner with OpenAI. And then, you've got Google with, doing all their training on the TPU. Bard 1 and Bard 2 didn't come out very well. Even when Gemini came out, did not, had some mistakes and some issues. But when it was running, and it is much improved, almost every Google search, you can see some of the generative AI capabilities. And AWS doesn't have that capability yet to get all those people talking on the consumer side. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting. AWS is used to, its posture is being first, right? They were the first one who stood up cloud computing. And this is kind of a very different area for them. And it's interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, there's a lot there, Pat. And I mean, we could talk more and more about Bedrock and how they're building a very open sort of platform with lots of experimentation capabilities. I mentioned services. What the real question I will ask as we head into this next era of cloud is, how much does that established market leadership and infrastructure translate to the AI era? How much do new disruptors like CoreWeave, Lambda, and others impact it? And how much does the app layer being more present in some of the others with Google and Microsoft really impact the AWS business if it doesn't all exist? Because AWS has never quite, but Q is really interesting. Anyways, we got to move on. Lots of good insights there, buddy. Let's talk about Samsung Unpacked. You were able to bounce between two things in New York. Did you get to Paris too? Did you do that? Time travel?
No, I was originally going to go to Paris, but decided not to. But I ended up doing three things in New York that was pretty awesome. But gosh, there's so much content here, and I'm going to have to blow through. But Samsung brought out a health ring, a completely revamped exercise watch. They brought out their 6th generation of the Fold and their 6th generation of the Flip. And they brought out a 3rd generation of their what's called Buds, or their in ear speakers. And they brought out a ton of new AI stuff. So some of the highlights. So Z Fold 6. I can't believe how thin this thing is and how good the multi-windowing and the camera is getting. There's a lot of chatter about, oh, wait a second, you increased this by $100, right? And you made all these improvements, but it's not enough. I wanted more camera. I see the Fold as a B2B play. And quite frankly, it's the killer app, and it's the killer device for hardcore business. Gets the new Qualcomm Snapdragon Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, which you get all the AI goodies, CPU, GPU, huge bumps there. Flip 6, I mean, it's amazing. You put the Flip 6 when it's open, and you put an iPhone or even the Galaxy S24, it gets tough. I mean, they've improved the camera. They have really narrowed the gap on performance, battery size, battery life, wireless, and durability. And I love these freaking cute cases. Heavy target market to a younger audience. I think they really have something there. And there's going to be any flip phone that will popularize this and do high volume, this is where it's going to start. The watch, I'm really into health, and there were definitely some differentiators versus Apple Watch. First of all, sleep apnea detection, something that's called advanced glycation end products. Again, I'm doing a lot of research on this, but essentially gives insight into metabolic health, metabolic aging. And typically these things are done with a blood test. Also, ECG monitoring and blood pressure, unfortunately not for the United States. They've had this capability for a couple of years, but the FDA is just not moving forward. Interestingly enough, in many countries in the EU, has been certified. But what I'm really, another differentiator here is you get what looks like, and again, I need to use this, a very valuable app. You don't have to pay for it. I'm paying for a ton of applications because Apple doesn't actually embed health capability that tells you what to do. It gives you the reading. The only thing that the Apple Watch does natively, it tells you when to stand up. Okay. I mean, literally that's it. It doesn't say where you're overtraining, undertraining. You need to sleep. Here is an issue with your sleep that you need to look at. It's very basic. And one might say, hey, they're making way for their developers, but with Samsung, you get it all there. Now, can't vouch for the app yet. I haven't used it. And then there's the Ring. I'm a huge Oura Ring user, and I primarily use it for deep, a double click on sleep and a double click on stress. Some differentiators here. It has ECG functionality. It has continuous heart rate monitoring, and has this thing called a vitality score, which is very similar to a paid application that I use called Athletic, that tells me essentially my physical and mental readiness. So,
now, do you ever allow that to particularly influence your day when your score isn't as good?
No. We've talked about this, Dan. What it is more of a, gosh, I kind of feel lousy right now, and let me pop open and look at it. It goes both ways. It also, it might be all green, and it kind of like lifts me up. But over the long term, my watch plus my Ring plus an app called Athletic have been instrumental in my health turnaround.
Is that it?
No. What just one on the AI side again. Samsung announced. By the way, Samsung has been shipping all their AI stuff for months, like Circle to Search, Sketch Image, and stuff like that. And
they reiterated GA.
Yeah, this is no, it's actually been GA for a long time, these features. But what I'm going to talk about are some of the standouts here and some of the new features. You're not going to challenge me on this one, man. You didn't go to the event.
I'm not even challenging you. I'm just asking dumb questions to keep the.
They're good questions. No, but some of the they did come out that Circle to Search is the most popular AI feature that they have. I think the Sketch to Image, the Browsing Assist, where you can essentially you hit your browser and you can summarize the page. One of the most interesting was PDF overlay translation, where you don't even have to take it into a PDF viewer and then do it'll do it right on top of that. I thought that was awesome. And if you look at the flip and the fold, the ability to do translation, where you can be speaking into your phone and then the other person can be reading it in their language, is pretty amazing. And then side by side, if you have a meeting going on and it's translating on the right of the fold screen, I just think that's incredibly powerful. So I could talk about this forever, especially the health features, but I have the Fold, and it's super thin, and I'm not even going to put a case on it for the first time because it has squared edges and they made it wider. So I think it's good stuff. I like it.
Yeah, I wasn't there. You hit it pretty hard. Haven't fully read up on it, Pat. I think there's an interesting sort of AI challenge that's going to take place between the two platforms. This isn't just really Samsung AI. It's going to be, what does Android powered AI look like? And of course, Samsung's always the de facto beneficiary of a volume. So Samsung's
Great,
AI
great
plus
point,
Android.
man. Yeah, it's Samsung plus Google takes
Yep.
on
Apple.
Apple plus OpenAI.
There we go. But I mean, of course, OpenAI is not really embedded. I mean, it's nothing more than I still don't really get that one, Pat. I got to be honest with you. And don't challenge me. I actually do get it, but I don't get it because it's like the ethos of Apple, and we're super private, but yet we're going to embed this company in the OS that nobody trusts anymore. Speaking of no one trusts this company anymore, let's talk a little bit about Apple and Microsoft deciding to, well, in Microsoft's case, deciding to leave its role as an observer on the board of directors at OpenAI, and Apple deciding not to pursue what was expected to be their participation following that deal, to be part of the observers of the board of directors at OpenAI. Man, Pat, look, that company builds the coolest technology on the planet. OpenAI is doing things unimaginable. But I still tell you, there's something going on, like it's like a volcano in that thing, and it's just burning from the inside out. Sam's he casts a controversial figure. His top lieutenants are all leaving. One of them is starting a company that's literally got the name of sort of, ethical or whatever he's calling it, AI in the name of the company. And to me, that felt like a very direct dig at the fact that OpenAI's existence was not based upon that. I did see an interesting Jay Cal from All In shared a video I saw of Sam driving around in a $2.5 million
Yes.
Koenigsegg, to which he said, I will be starting an NFP or whatever. I want to start a non-for-profit or whatever.
Yes, exactly.
And look, I'm a capitalist. I'm all for people being successful. And what Sam's doing is changing the world. But Apple and Microsoft increasingly want nothing to do with it, which is kind of weird because Apple has obviously wants a lot to do with it, but they don't want to be uniquely close in a way that the outside world can see. So I'm going to give you the caveat there in a minute. Microsoft, even moreover, and there's been that kind of controversial commentary that's come in the market from Satya Nadella talking about them being over and under and all around, and basically no matter what OpenAI does, they have the whole thing under their control. But being observer on the board seems to be that cutoff limit of where they do not want to be anymore, because guess what? The probers are busy probing again, and they want to figure out if these companies are colluding or doing anything that's going to uniquely position and give advantage. And would the spot as board observer give them more power? Here's the thing, with them being the largest commercial relationships, not money necessarily, because the Apple OpenAI one doesn't have a direct monetary relationship, at least not disclosed. But with the influence of money, I still think that both those companies are going to have an outsized ability to influence where and how OpenAI goes directionally. And of course, we're even hearing OpenAI potentially changing its corporate structure to enable it to be to go public, or in some way be able to be a beneficiary corp that can, in fact, be invested in more easily by more outsiders. The only thing I want to add about this is, if you remember, Microsoft made that inflection deal with Sullivan, and I think a lot of the company is AI strategy revolves around that. They are more directionally trying to build stuff on their own. They basically acquired Inflection, but they don't call it an acquisition. They did it that way very intentionally. They were able to avoid all scrutiny, all regulatory approvals. But they did basically hired everybody, licensed all the technology, and left nothing in the company other than a shell. So it was really interesting. By the way, super smart. I want to be very clear about that. But now the regulatory bodies are probing this. They're like, is that legit? And I think we're all saying, hey guys, waking up. Good morning. How's it going over there in government? It's good that you're starting to pay attention. So the long short, Pat, is they're all going to be involved. they're going to continue to use, they're going to continue to influence. They just don't want to be named as formally participating in the shaping and driving of the company's governance.
Yeah. I don't have much to add on this. You know, it's interesting, your first tack that you were going down, I was wondering if you're going to hit the regulatory piece, but yeah, I mean, they both Apple and Microsoft got word from either FTC or the DOJ, and they had to bail, right? And it was amazing. I think it was on the same day, which was just so shocking because I think everybody was surprised. So Microsoft got put on the board after the big shakeup in leadership there. You know, Sam was CEO. He got fired. Then he was going to be a Microsoft employee, and then he came back on. And then, you know, Apple just received their board seat after, you know, the deal that they did for Apple AI. So yeah, I think it's, you know, this is pre-crime, and these guys are getting ahead of the pre-crime to not get these folks on their back. I haven't read the filing or the warning, but it must be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so talking fun, acquisitions are fun. AMD doesn't make as many as some companies, but when they do, they tend to make decisions that are substantial. And they made the acquisition of Silo this week. Pat, what's your take?
Yeah, so about a $650 million acquisition, big enough that they had to float this out there. 300 employees, 130 of them are AI PhDs. And here's the TLDR. AMD is going to use Silo for two things. The first one is to optimize LLMs for AMD hardware, and even machine learning, object and voice. AMD had to do optimizations of those frameworks, and for LLMs, they need to do the optimizations for those. And the second one is to really help end customers either optimize, tune, or prune models for their specific use cases. And Dan, there, as we've seen just in all our travels and all the briefings and all our discussions, right? You can take a model, and then you can try to get the results that you want through the data that you put in front of it, right? You can actually go in and customize the model and fine tune that model to see what you get. And then in some cases, you have to create your own model, right? If it's very specific or it's not one you can pull off the shelf and license from a Hugging Face. So this is, very much what NVIDIA gets a lot of credit for. When model creators for training create a new model, they do it first, typically on NVIDIA, with the exception being Google Gemma and Gemini. And AMD has to optimize these models for their hardware. And then even out in the field, right, when there's an end customer that needs help in, again, optimizing, tuning, and pruning, this is where the Silo folks come into play. Not bad. 300 employees, 650 million, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a big spend, it's a big turn, but I mean, it's also a big bet, and the risk reward profile is pretty substantial, Pat. This talent it's not just like you can run over to the local university and find, this 125 PhDs and these people that have all this experience, developing, building, tuning, and running the models, and with AMD experience too.
Yeah.
So, to your point, a lot of the talent that's out there is primarily skilled for NVIDIA, if it exists at all. And they're very busy, the people that are out there that know how to do this right now. This is a case of AMD trying to hack the speed. When I say hack, I mean it in a positive way. The speed to which they can develop software to run on instinct. This is the biggest challenge the market has when it comes to AMD. It's never, is their hardware good enough? In fact, the benchmarks stand up pretty pretty significantly and amply at this point in time. And it's actually put some pressure on NVIDIA to launch its newest models. But having said that, the software is always the part that people come back to and say it's just not there. It's not as complete. It's not as ready. It's not as utilized. There's not as much development talent. And so AMD in this case is acquiring a lot of talent that can help them foundationally move quicker. And I mean that as a double entendre, both foundationally in their business and foundational models. And then they can actually connect the stacks and develop applications that people will use, because that's the other thing, Pat, and we're going to talk about more about that in a minute. But, the big problem of AI right now isn't hardware. It's not an infrastructure problem, as much as there is some accessibility to GPUs and some network build out. We are in a massive infrastructure build out, but now people want to know, how do we use this stuff? Well, AMD needs to, if they want to win more business, they want to take a bigger share of this market. Pat, $200 billion in CapEx has been spent so far. AMD's gotten what, 4 or 5 billion of it this year. Yeah. So where's the rest of that all gone? They want a bigger piece of that. They got to make it more compelling. This is part of that. So $650 million to get a bigger piece of what I think Lisa called out as a $400 billion opportunity by the end of the decade. Seems like a good bet, and she makes mostly good bets. So speaking of betting and problems, Pat, this past week, this has been my new hill to die on, has been an endless call from market makers and market influencers like Andreessen Horowitz and Goldman Sachs and Sequoia. Sequoia published a piece called, AI's $600 billion problem or challenge. A16Z did a version of this over a series of a few blogs. Goldman Sachs basically came out and said there isn't a single application on generative AI that basically delivers any value, more or less. The words, those are paraphrases, but those are the words. And so I've been thinking a lot about it. I wrote an op-ed. I wrote a few tweets that could have been op-eds. We're doing a lot of market assessment right now, market growth. If there is $200 billion in CapEx and we need $600 billion in market impact, how does this work? And so, I've been talking about this kind of these network effects, and basically this 200 billion has all been seen by, the compute, memory, systems, network. And then of course there's some power and other elements that have gone into this build out. And then you've seen, where's all that spend going? And that's where a lot of red flags, people have been somewhat critical of Google, Microsoft, AWS, this wave of startups. I mentioned CoreWeave, Lambda Labs, and others that are spending a fortune and trying to understand what services are they delivering that people are paying for to justify those huge expense outlays. And then, Pat, really the big part is, we're hearing terms now like, is software dead, or software as we know it is dying? And that's basically all the ISVs saying that Salesforce, UiPath, Workday, ServiceNow, SAP, parts of the Oracle stack, Snowflake, go down that list and say it's kind of, is it the end for them? I mean, they've been crushed in the market. So while there's been all this excitement and exuberance and enthusiasm about tech's boom, it hasn't been all of tech. It's been like 7 companies. And so a number of companies are being left in the dust, with software being a big part of it. But here's my thesis, Pat. The 600 billion comes from a third network layer that is effectively analyst firms, manufacturing companies, automotive makers, financial services providers, healthcare firms, investment and financial services banks, and they're going to be using apps, Pat. They run custom software, and they run Oracle, they run SAP, they run Salesforce, they run a whole boatload of workloads and apps. And guess what? They do a lot of it in the cloud consumption. They do a lot of it in applications, the ones I mentioned. So what we have is an ingestion and then digestion problem. We're ingesting all this, we're digesting all of this, and basically we're looking at a time horizon. And so my ultimate thesis here, Pat, is that there isn't a $600 billion problem. There is a timeline problem. But if you're in the market, the timeline problem is more substantial than if you're in the business. Because in the market, you're trying to time a trade. You're getting in, you're getting out. Am I buying high? Am I buying low? When's the growth going to come? When am I going to be able to see it in the numbers? One of my favorite lines from one of my favorite movies was called The Big Short. And he walks into the office and he says, I may be early, but I'm not wrong. And the guy in front of him says, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. So if you're a trader, you are possibly early. Software may be slow to be able to define revenue and then discern between what's growth of revenue and what's commodity, Pat. Like, do AI PCs and phones mean more revenue over the long run, or do people just expect more features? And that's the expectation.
Uh-oh, you're on mute again, buddy.
The other side of it is with SaaS, it's the same thing, because the whole SaaS concept was it was born on continuous improvement. So when do people pay for generational quality leaps in software? And when is something just supposed to be a baked-in feature that's better? All right, I'll let the topic lie here. Pat, I think if you are a builder, you're very excited and enthused about the future. I think if you're trying to trade this, it's hard to get away from those first network effects, because it's not obvious yet where money's going to be made.
So I believe this is 100% about timing. And, it's hard to see the beauty of the wood finish when you're putting the plumbing in, and building the cement foundation. And when it comes to the infrastructure, that's exactly what we're doing. And we're actually having to train, the home builders on a new way to build a home and new way to install the cabinets on there, because it's never been done like this before. The one element, and maybe you hit it, maybe you didn't. I didn't interpret it that is competitively. I mean, what is a SaaS provider going to do? Just say, you know what? I'm deciding that I'm just going to not do this right now because I don't see this thing panning out for another 2 years. And all your competitors go in and they institute all of these features, and then you're going to lose all of this business, and your stock's going to get dumped, and you're going to get fired as a CEO and a leadership team. So there actually is no choice. I think it is a miracle at how these SaaS companies are walking on this kind of razor's edge of not bringing in a ton of cost and slowly and quickly bringing these features out. One thing I know, though, like Adobe Firefly and the ability to cut your content creation costs by 50%, right? The ability in human resources or any type of service environment to improve self-service like in a way we've never seen before. I mean, it's just crazy the amount of code that can be written. That can be written. I mean, heck, agents create code on its own. Now it's sandboxed first to keep it, from doing weird and nefarious stuff, but it's there. So it's a timing issue. If you're an enterprise or an enterprise SaaS enterprise writing your own enterprise applications and capabilities, or you're an enterprise SaaS companies, like, what are you going to do? You're going to not do e-commerce? Are you not going to put up a website, right? You're not going to connect to the internet. We've had these types of milestones before, and I know I was 10 years into my career when .com boom hit and the bust hit. And I think we're so far away from that. I mean, the internet, there wasn't good content on there. I mean, it was like you get on and you search and the search sucked. Why? Because a lot of the content wasn't even on the internet, right? So I think I am actually quite optimistic and quite bullish. I will let the financial bean counters figure out the timing and the affordability, but you don't have a choice if you're an enterprise or an enterprise SaaS company. You got to move.
Yeah, you're getting into it. Yeah, and that was kind of what I was saying about what's expected, Pat, or required to stay competitive versus what can you actually incrementally charge more for, is what I was kind of trying to allude to. Is, of course,
everybody but Zoom and a couple other companies are paying. It's an extra added feature,
Right. And so when will people pay for it, and do they get enough value to justify? These companies have always just raised prices anyway, just for doing sort of, iterative feature growth and expansion. That's kind of the whole model of SaaS, Pat. Now, one thing I know you love to talk about, and we're going to get to the last topic here, but you've always loved to talk about sort of that hybrid multi-cloud data fabric. And one of the big things that the Goldman person that wrote the piece, and his name I forget right now, but is he kind of pointed out that he could have it do some of the complex equities modeling for him, but it was at 6 times the cost. And so what I think a lot of that has to do with is the initial development of a model and training and bringing all the data together on a fabric that can be appreciated by a generative tool is going to be front-loaded expensive. So at 6 times or 8 times, whatever it was. But over time, once you've optimized that, there has to be like a factory element to it, is you spend big to build it. And then over time, it starts to create lots of efficiency. And I don't know that they're weighing that in yet, because right now it feels like it's all build. And there's a continuous build because the data, but listen, 20 years of ML pipeline, Pat, and everything else, we still haven't gotten that multi-hybrid cloud data fabric to where it's easy to use for a real looking enterprise data estate. And that's going to slow down AI. We got to figure that out. It's got to get figured out. I know there's some things out there. Probably it's something we should have a whole different show to talk about. But let's talk about actually a company that's trying to solve AI and ML and data pipeline, Pat, and a new partnership that's going on between Oracle and Palantir. Expanded partnership, I guess I should say.
Yeah, so 2 very interesting companies, right? You have Oracle that is growing like crazy as an IaaS provider, complementing their SaaS and PaaS capabilities, right? Oracle has deals with Microsoft. They have deals with OpenAI. I mean, it's crazy how competitive that they are on IaaS with this Gen 2 OCI, and then doubling down on all of the GPUs. And then you have Palantir. It's interesting. Palantir formed in 2003, right? Peter Thiel founded and created, and it really specializes in big data analytics for big defense, big government, and also commercial interests out there. And they have 3 main product lines, right? They have Gotham, which is used by defense and intelligence agencies. They have Foundry, which is all about for commercial enterprises, and then Apollo, which is essentially a one step underneath that is managing the CI/CD pipeline for these companies. And it's funny, you really had to look at the press release to see kind of what was going on here, right? Hey, we're certifying Palantir's platforms on OCI. Palantir is moving Foundry workloads to Oracle to OCI. And my question to everybody is, from where? Nobody wants to say where Palantir was doing this before, but this looks like an absolute net add for OCI and a net lose for another IaaS provider, or they were doing it at a colo or something like that. The other thing we found, and this makes sense with Gotham, right? Think defense and intelligence agencies. That application and AI platform is distributed across all Oracle Cloud regions, right? Dedicated regions, Alloy, Oracle Government, Oracle Roving Edge, pretty much everything, right? Air-gapped for defense and intelligence implementation. And this just seems to me so classic Oracle and right in their sweet spot. So to me, the TLDR is another big IaaS provider, another big IaaS win, and then a distribution of applications, and in this case, Foundry and Gotham available to Oracle customers.
Yeah, I'm going to hit this one quickly, Pat, because I think you made some good points. I don't think there's a ton of meat on this bone, but what is the meat on the bone here is there is such a symbiotic relationship between one of the rising stars of being, an intelligence and data platform to, government, to top secret, to, your highest security agencies and clearances being Palantir, and of course Oracle, which is basically the database that's run every government entity on the planet. So the go-to-market motion here makes a ton of sense. It's so logical that this is a build on, build up. And of course, Oracle, while they are building AI capabilities and databases, and obviously they are not, building out as expansive of an infrastructure or a software platform as some of the competitors. So Oracle's approach using partnering and best of breed to be able to corner a market like the intelligence market, the government defense market so successfully makes sense. Yeah. I mean, Pat, there's an argument that at least within most, sovereign and government, like that this is sort of going to become a de facto standard. And I don't know who else is going to be able to crack this from both a clearance, a certification, and an already kind of an existing platform within these different agency models. So
yeah, Dan, I looked across AWS, Google, and Azure, and all three of those companies have certain alignments, right? Google is more about commercial applications, right, that you can run out of their marketplace. This was the most like, hey, defense, air gapped, intelligence, just in your face, right, and proud.
Yeah, and I mean, look, that's a big market. It's a stable and sturdy market. Remember, there's a company that has 74% more predictable revenue at any given time with a big cloud growth, big infrastructure growth.
Yeah, I said this 2-3 years ago. They have the most straightforward private cloud and sovereign cloud offering out of anybody. It's just straightforward, right?
Well,
their on-prem cloud is essentially, you take a copy of what's in the public cloud and you paste it on the customer's premises or colo, and you put a chain link fence around it, and Oracle manages it for you. And then sovereign cloud is a different building and a different, there's no wait a second, and I think from a market timing, Oracle got to jump on sovereign over everybody.
They did. It's sticky, and this is a good partnership. And by the way, Pat, I don't know if you know this, but Palantir quietly saw its market cap exceed Snowflake.
Interesting. And it's crazy that, Snowflake is what formed in, 2020 or something, and Palantir's 2003.
Yeah. They've been at it a long time, but nobody has really seen them as a big, fast riser. They've been big, fast riser, and their growth is much faster than other software companies right now. And their logos have been really significant in the growth of companies that are running its platform. So it's a good win, good partnership, solid, good stuff, Pat. All right, we got to wrap this show up. We did it. This is the prelude to a vacation. We won't be back next week. I mean, Pat can do the show, but it won't be with me. Maybe it'll be with me. I don't know. Maybe I'll get bored. Maybe by the end of the week, I'll be like, Pat, I got to get on. I got to do something. Who knows?
Do it from the beach.
But don't count on it, everybody. I know you kind of sit around, you plan your weeks around the 9 a.m. Friday, Pat and I. You can't help yourself. Listen, everybody, hit that subscribe button. Join us for all of our coverage here on the 6-5. Pat and I love doing this show. We love the community. We appreciate each and every one of you that tunes in. But we're going to say goodbye for now. We'll see you all really soon.